I grew up in a fairly conservative community in Mexico City. And while I was growing up, I was a very inquisitive child. And that was celebrated up until a certain age. But right around the time when I became a teenager and I became of age, and people were more concerned because this is a conservative community about now she needs to go out into the world and meet boys and hopefully in 5 years or so, get married and establish herself as a wife in the community and so on. Right around that time, when I told my mother, who had only finished high school in Guatemala, that I was interested in mathematics and physics, she pretty much didn't really know what those were exactly, but she said, be careful, because I think, just don't tell boys that you like math, because I'm not sure that's a very feminine thing. I knew then on that I had to hide this love for mathematics. And what I did is I went into the basement, for example, and in the house where we used to live in, and I would read about the stories of mathematicians and physicists, and I would sometimes even cry. I know it sounds weird, but I felt I had this calling, and I didn't even know from where. None of the people I knew were scientists, let alone physicists. Unfortunately, it wasn't only my mother who told me that math and physics were not very feminine careers and that I probably should consider a different option, such as philosophy or communication or something that would still make me attractive to the opposite sex. While I was studying philosophy, I realized that there was this burning passion inside me to do physics. And I really didn't know what to do about it, and I didn't know how to express it because I felt that my environment was not very accepting of those desires. So I applied to schools in the US, and I was very fortunate to receive a scholarship from Brandeis University. And I will always be grateful to them, because I received this full scholarship that enabled me to leave Mexico, move to the US, and enroll in both philosophy and physics. And as soon as I got to Brandeis, I had the courage to take a very large astronomy course. And this was a very basic course, very little math, a lot of people. And I made a connection with a teaching assistant. This was an Indian man by the name of Rupesh, who was a graduate student in the department at the time. And Rupesh and I became friends over the course of the semester, and he noticed that when I came up, every afternoon office hour session to his classroom, that my eyes would light up, and that I wasn't a typical student that just wanted to, do the homework right and get an A and forget about physics for the rest of the weekend. To the contrary, I was extremely passionate, and I would stay talking to Rupesh for hours on end about everything about the universe. It didn't just pertain to homework or the class. It was, no, but why? Why are the planets like that? And why are the orbits of that shape? And wait, and what would happen under certain conditions? And all these questions that led into a deeper and deeper exploration of nature. I became fascinated until one day I was walking near Harvard Square with Rupesh. By this time we were friends. And my passion just burst out, and we were walking near the divinity school in Harvard Square, and I had tears in my eyes, and I looked at Rupesh and I just said, Rupesh, I just don't want to die without trying. I said, I don't want to die without trying to do physics. He said, hold on one moment. We didn't have cell phones at the time, so there was a payphone nearby. He called his advisor, who was the professor of the astronomy class, and he said, look, I have a girl here who's crazy. No, I'm just kidding. He said, I have a girl here. She's in the philosophy department. She only has 2 more years left of her scholarship, and she'd like to pursue the physics degree. So fortunately, at Brandeis, there was a precedent for this, which there's a man by the name of Ed Witten, who you probably have heard of, is the father of one of our most popular theories nowadays called string theory. He's practically a genius. And basically, when he was at Brandeis many years before me, he had switched from history to mathematics. So Rupesh's advisor calls me in to his office and he hands me a book, which title I did not even understand the words of. It was called Div, Grad, and Curl, and it had to do with vector calculus. And he said to me, if by the end of the summer you're able to understand this book and we'll make you take a test on it, then we'll let you skip through the first 2 years of the physics major and you'll be able to finish your degree in time. And of course I thought, this man is obviously joking. I mean, the only other person that had done this before is the genius that started string theory, and I have absolutely no background. I did have mathematics while I was in high school, but I probably by that time had forgotten a lot of the basics, and I was really rusty even in algebra. So Rupesh, a very kind man, decided, because he believed in me, to mentor me for a whole summer. So that summer, Rupesh and I sat every day from 11 a.m., because I took a morning course at the university, from 11 a.m. all the way to 10 p.m. every single day to go through the first 2 years of the entire physics and math major. So basically, we had no time. So it was Saturdays, derivatives, Sunday, integrals, Monday, a third of the classical mechanics book, Tuesday, the second third. You get the point. It was incredibly grueling and crazy, and I was so perseverant that at the end of the summer, I took that exam and I passed it. And the reason why I tell this story is because that's how my mission in life began. Because Rupesh mentored me and spent all this time not only believing in me, which is what gave me most of the courage and the ability to do things, but also sitting down with me and explaining to me how to solve all these problems in a practical and effective way, to do it in 2 months. So I always wanted to compensate for his effort. And, I would, offer to pay for his meals and things like that, but he would never let me pay him for his tutoring. He related to me the following story. He said to me, Debbie, I grew up in India, in Darjeeling, which is up in the mountains. And there was an old man that used to climb up the mountains, and it was hard for him. And he came up to teach me and my sisters the tabla, which is a musical instrument, English, and math. And every time my father wanted to compensate this old man, the old man said, no, the only way you could ever compensate me is if you do this with someone else in the world. So I think it's such a moving story, because that's exactly what Rupesh relayed to me. And he said, the only way you could ever pay me is if you do this with someone else in the world. And that's how my mission in life started, to encourage and inspire other people, and especially women who, like myself, feel attracted to science, but for some reason, whether it be financial, social, some other type of pressure, feel that they can't do it. And so I've dedicated an enormous amount of my time in the past 10, 12 years to encourage and inspire other women and young people in general to understand that science is everywhere, and to be passionate about the world that surrounds us and the explanatory power that science can have about why things happen the way they do.
And that's you, right?
Yeah.
That's you.
You'll mess it up, and that's what I kept feeling. Wait a second. Well,
yeah, well, that's what I thought.
He's the co-author?
Yeah.
Holy cow. Kind of like bringing it out. I currently work in Wall Street as a quantitative risk analyst, and I use some of the mathematics that I learned in my Ph.D. in physics to try to solve problems of risk management. So when people invest in the market, they incur certain risks, and what we try to do is explain with statistics how those risks can affect your investments. So that's my day job, but a lot of my time I spend being a science communicator. I have a website called Science with Debbie. I do a lot of public speaking around the world. I run initiatives to encourage young people who sometimes don't have the resources to learn about science, and to encourage them to come close to labs, museums, come closer to meet scientists and run program applications that are science-based, etc. And I've had the fortune to be picked to do two TV shows in the past couple of years. I filmed a National Geographic show called Humanly Impossible and a Discovery International show called You've Been Warned. And both of them, I had to explain the physics of everyday life events.